And just like that, summer is here. 2 weeks ago I was freezing. Today we have to wear sunblock to be outside. Welcome back to Bromford News, everyone. By popular demand, today I'm showing you how to make your own suet. Mark, the owner of Mill Creek Suet, has kindly shared his recipe, so I'm just passing it on. So what do we need for that? We need beef tallow or pure suet. Here I have a whole bucket. You can buy this stuff online, it's readily available. Then you will need all sorts of fillers. I'm making just a peanut one today, so I have roasted peanuts. You can roast your raw peanuts in the oven, just toss them in for a few minutes. You'll need a pot, and then start saving the plastic containers from your other suet blocks, because this is what you're going to be pouring it into and then turning it into blocks. So here we go. I'm going to put a few scoops of beef tallow in the pot. We don't need to make it boil, we just need to melt it, but don't make it too hot. Again, this is my first time making this, so my proportions might be a little bit off. All right, and a little bit more. So while this is melting, I'm gonna chop up my peanuts right here. So here we go, this is all melted. I don't want to boil it, so I'm just going to turn it off and take it off the heat. And now the peanuts go in. Mark says to put lots and lots of peanuts. You can also add dried mealworms, sunflower hearts, pumpkin seeds, dried fruit, whatever you want. All right, so this looks all thick and delicious, but it's still rather hot. So I'm gonna leave this for about, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour, because I don't want to pour this into plastic containers and then melt them. So I'm leaving this and I'll be back. All right, so this has cooled off, so now it's time to pour it into the containers. There. And now I'm going to take this and put it in the fridge until it solidifies, and then I'll put it in my suet feeder and see how my birds like my own suet blocks. Good luck, everyone! Mark Clark has a Squirrel Buster standard, and he wants to know how to keep rats and mice at bay.
Hi, Mark. Ah, yes, mice and rats being attracted by birdseed. It's a topic that my wife keeps reminding me about whenever I suggest the idea of laying out food at ground level for the birds. I'm not sure where you live in terms of the various species of rats and mice that could be attracted to your feeder operation, so I'll have to talk in generalities. There are two basic rules to prevent this from happening. So the first one, you're already doing it by using a Squirrel Buster feeder to keep out squirrels and any rats that can climb to access your feeder. For small mice, that kind of weighted feeder will not be effective. All you can do in their case is to make sure they can't climb to the feeder. I hang all of my feeders from the eaves outside my kitchen window, and it's very difficult for squirrels to access them and virtually impossible for any rats and mice. There are foods that rats and mice do not like. Artificial nectar and Niger seed immediately come to mind. And I'm not going to recommend using suet or seed treated with hot pepper. Until I see some solid scientific data on how this could potentially affect both birds and rodents, I'm not keen on the concept. But that's a topic for a separate discussion. The other major line of defense is to keep your seed off the ground. For that, you need to install a tray on your feeder, and these are readily available. A tray in the feeder filled with shell sunflower seeds is even better. Also, take a look around and be sure that you have minimized any kind of habitat or attractants that may bring these rodents into the proximity of your feeder. Things like openings in buildings, brush and debris piles, stacked wood, and thick patches of ivy and other ground covers. Make sure that rodents cannot access garbage, compost piles, pet food, stored birdseed, barbecue grills, vegetable gardens, and fruit trees, and even dog waste. Bonnie, I suppose you could get into traps and poisons to kill the rats and mice in your yard, but it may end up occupying all of your time, and to many, such actions are considered somewhat inhumane.
I hope you're participating in the Mow May campaign. As you can see, we are. This is actually something we do naturally. In May, we never touch our grass because I feel really bad for all the pollinators looking for sources of nectar. And I'm also fascinated to see what kind of flowers we get besides dandelions. But if you haven't participated in this campaign, don't worry, you still have the whole summer ahead of you. Basically, the approach is to mow your lawn as infrequently as possible. Once a month would be actually perfect. But if you have to cut your grass, please find maybe a patch of your lawn that you can just leave be for the rest of the summer. You'll be surprised what kind of flowers will come up and what kind of pollinators you will attract.
With the pandemic forcing many of the 8 billion humans in the world to hunker down and stay at home, one can well imagine the positive impacts on the earth in terms of pollution of all forms. Fewer cars, fewer planes, and just plain less noise everywhere. This has some bird lovers wondering whether the drastically lowered levels of noise pollution are a blessing for the birds. Numerous studies have shown that noise pollution, especially in urban areas, has a huge impact on songbirds. Besides the stress caused by fright from sudden loud noises, scientists have compared birds living in rural areas with city birds, and they've found that ongoing loud noise pollution can lead to chronic stress in birds, declining bird densities, and a general impairment of their abilities to find food, locate mates, defend their territories from competitors, avoid predators, and navigate from place to place. One German lab study even suggested that it could shorten the lives of fledged songbirds. So yes, the world is temporarily a much quieter place overall. But how is this affecting singing birds? Well, some folks around the world are claiming that birdsong seems much louder now than before the pandemic. But according to experts on the subject, it's simply an illusion. They only seem louder because there's less background noise. In fact, if anything, birds might be singing more quietly these days. You can just hear them better without all our noise to contend with.
It is truly exciting to see how popular bird watching and bird feeding has become in the past 2 months. I get quite a few messages, people asking me how to choose a feeder, what kind of bird seed to use, how to get started feeding birds. So this week when we were looking for stories, we came across an article about an initiative that was started by BirdLife Switzerland. Because of so many people staying at home, working from home, or just being stuck at home, they asked everyone, whether they have a garden or backyard or not, to just watch, count, and ID birds that they see around them. And they were so thrilled with the level of participation. 140,000 sightings were recorded in just 1 week. Continuing to ride the wave, BirdLife Switzerland is now asking everyone to join them in their Twitcher theme, which is creating a backyard bird paradise by providing native flowers, native bushes, a water feature, and even a brush pile. The poor Florida grasshopper sparrow. We've run several articles about this tiny bird. First, how critically endangered it was, then about only breeding pairs living in captivity, then about a hurricane flattening the area where they lived and no one knew what happened to the birds. But there's actually good news. Last year, a group of Florida grasshopper sparrows were released into the wild, and this year there are sightings of them nesting and breeding. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife are really thrilled because these tiny ground-dwelling birds are an easy prey for raptors and reptiles, but with 150 birds happily breeding in the wild, there is hope for the grasshopper sparrow. Before we sign off, just a quick reminder that our June photo contest is not a photo contest, it's a drawing and a painting contest. Kids are welcome as well. Well, goodbye for now. I'll catch you in 2 weeks.